guys. So I have a friend here with me today. All right, so tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
All right, well, my name is Carter Daniels, 23 years old. I've probably known Sham here for...
Since grade 6.
Grade 6. Fun fact, dated twice.
Long time ago.
Still good friends, though.
Friends.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted.
So she brought me on to talk about 2 topics today. We're going to do addiction, more specifically drug addiction, and then probably going to finish that off with depression in men, because some people like to think that it's 2 different things, being depressed and then men having depression is such a different aspect of it. Not really sure why. So yeah.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, not really.
No? Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna do drug addiction first. So he's just gonna say a little bit about his history with that, and I'll ask him a couple questions. He'll answer them, and then after that, we will move on to the depression in men, and it'll work the same way. He'll say his history with that, and then he'll answer a couple questions on that. So. When would you say that this all started, and when did you realize you became dependent on taking drugs?
So probably started around 18, 19 years old, and the really weird thing about being a drug addict is you don't actually ever realize that you have a drug addiction, even when you need to do that drug when you wake up in the morning to function through the day. It's just something that never really crosses your mind. But at this point in my life now, that I've been clean for a while, I could probably pinpoint having realized now that the drug addiction, being dependent, I'd probably say a year into doing drugs, and the drug was cocaine, so probably about a year into it, that's when I probably became extremely codependent on it.
Okay. And so I was gonna ask, how long did it take you to realize it was a problem, but I guess a year in, but what exactly made you realize that this was an issue? Was there a specific thing that you were like, oh my goodness?
Yeah. So, kind of like I said already, when you're a drug addict, you don't realize it's a problem. Even when people tell you I think this is affecting your everyday life or your friendships, it's it doesn't really matter to you, because all that matters is doing the drugs, right? So, the point at which I realized it was a problem is when I couldn't go, basically every weekend, I was ending up in the emergency room, having to be hooked up to IVs and monitoring my heart rhythm. So, and then really what the kicker, nail in the coffin, was that the doctor basically came to me and was like, hey, your heart can't handle this anymore. If this happens again, that's it. Punch the off button. No more. And so I kind of decided, I was like, I guess that's probably a good time to stop.
And how, at that point, how long have you been into that drug that got you to that point? When the doctor said that, how long have you been doing it for?
At that point, probably... I was probably about 20. It's probably about 20 at that point.
It's 2 years, you'd say? 1 to 2?
1 to 2, maybe 2.5 years into doing it.
That's crazy that, after doing it for that point, because there's people who are a drug addict their whole lives, but it's crazy that after that kind of small window, your heart was already giving out, and it was just so you can see the impact on how bad it is, because after doing it for that brief window, it's like your heart can't take it, and it's like you have people who do it most of their lives, and it's like their bodies are probably just shutting down.
Yeah, like it's just the other problem is I have an extremely addictive personality. It's one of the reasons why I don't smoke anymore, I don't drink anymore, and obviously I don't do any drugs anymore. But it's super easy for me to just become like hooked on stuff. Especially with Coke, the problem is that it gives you like such an energy burst, and like it makes you more talkative. It's like it makes you more of like a sociable person. So that was a big thing, is that because I could just go talk to I could talk to anybody. It was a weird experience to be like that, because I am a friendly person and I like to talk to people, but not random strangers that I've never met before that I could carry out a full on hour-long conversation with.
Yeah, and I've seen you do that.
Just chatting away like I have no cares
yeah,
in the world.
I've seen him in that state, so I've definitely seen it, and he is very friendly and very goofy. But yeah, it's different. It's usually people you know, and not just some random person. You're like, hey, what's up? Like, so that's a little different. That's what happens if you like drink too much alcohol too. Sometimes you're just talking.
You get those different people.
And you're all good. Yeah, no, exactly. So tell everyone how long you've been sober.
This year now it'll be 3 years that I've been clean, and
did you quit like right then and there when the doctor said that, or did you have some kind of relapse moments?
No, thankfully I didn't have any relapse moments, and honestly the only reason I think probably I didn't have any relapse moments is because that message kept playing up in here, like if you do it again, like that's it, you're gonna punch that off button, and I just was not ready to like have someone find me laying on the ground unconscious because my heart stopped.
Yeah, at such a young age too. So
yeah,
sometimes it doesn't like hit you right away, right? So it's nice that you haven't had the relapse, because I know a lot of people struggle with that. So that's when they tell you you're not gonna make it if you keep doing it. That's, I guess, that kind of
it's a real wake up call. Yeah,
hits you really hard if you know that you have all these things that you want to do and haven't got to do them, and all this sort of stuff.
It's a really big wake up call.
Yeah, makes sense. So how did you get sober? Like, were there any tools that helped you get sober? Like, any specific thing? Like, did you surround yourself with a lot of friends? Like, anything like that? What sort of things did you do?
My addiction was kind of a secret. Like, obviously, people I hung out with knew about it, but I kept it secret from my family. So, unfortunately for me, I didn't have that support blanket kind of situation where like my parents are like, we'll help you, and like couldn't just go and like check myself into rehab and go, yep, I have a problem. I basically had to rely on myself, and at the time a girlfriend, to help me through it. And is a lot of time at the beginning just staying in your house and not going anywhere and not doing anything, just kind of like letting your body with like you go through withdrawal, right? So you kind of just like suffer the shakes, chills, feeling up sick, and then it just was a matter after that. Once that was over, it was just a matter of me kind of not hanging out with the same people, because a lot of it was a social aspect of it, was that you go to like a party and you and all your friends just sit at a table till 6 o'clock in the morning and you just do blow. And so I just kind of had to like stop myself from going out to those parties anymore, and really change my whole friend group.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Usually it starts because of the people around, and people don't realize that the people you surround yourself with has a huge impact on you, whether it's drugs or whatever it is. The people you surround yourself with, if we're doing bad things, the chances of you doing those same things, very high.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you're around them a lot. So that's the problem with addiction and all that sort of thing. Like when you're younger, you want to solidify a group of friends and you want to fit in. So you'll do kind of anything. And if they're doing something, you're like, oh, that looks fun. Like they're doing it, so why don't I do it? And then that's where you get sucked in, and that tends to be the issue. But once you stop surrounding yourself with those people, then it helps. Not that it's easy, but it would definitely help not to be around those types of people, for sure. If you could give any struggling addicts advice, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatever, what would that be?
So, let's see.
You gotta think about it.
The thing is that being an addict, unless you want help, you can't give an addict help. Unless that person is willing to accept it, it's a big waste of time and energy. But to the people who are trying to stop whatever their addiction is, right? You gotta let your family in on it. You can't. It's really hard to do it by yourself. And if anyone is willing to like stick their neck out, help you, hold your hand through the experience, it's the best thing that you can do, because fighting something like that alone is so hard and so much strain on your body, physically, emotionally. And one thing I would say to people who are still out there not ready to give up their addiction is don't let it consume you, because it's very easy to lose yourself in that world, and you really quickly blur the line between reality and fiction, basically. Even though everything around you is still happening, you're in your own world. Nothing else really matters but that drug. So don't let it become your whole world.
I think that's very, very good advice. I can't give advice personally, but it was nice to get advice from somebody and learn more about it, because I'm learning as much as you guys are probably learning about it if you've never dealt with it yourself. So it's really nice to learn about this. And now we're going to move on to our next topic. Okay, so we're on to topic number 2, if we can ever stop laughing, because that's all we've done for the most part. Okay, so depression in men is the second one. Try to tell your story without answering all the damn questions, because I have nothing to ask.
Oh, I'm an open book.
Yeah, you are.
I'm gonna cheat. I have notes.
So do I. Our memorization skills are not the greatest at all.
So, alright, okay. So my background with depression goes back to middle school. So we're talking 13 years old. And at 13 years old, you don't even comprehend what you're feeling, let alone trying to diagnose yourself with a mental illness.
And it was not as known back then too. Now there's a lot of talk about it, but when we were that age, there was not a whole lot of talk about it. No. It was later on in high school.
Yeah. I finally figured out by grade 9 probably what it was, but at that point I'd already been dealing with it for 3 years. So yeah, it was great times. God. I will joke about this. This is a super serious topic, and I'm not going to try and take anything away from that. But I will make jokes.
Yeah, and especially if you can look back on it now, and you're in a different place, and you're like, oh, went through all that, and you just kind of make light of the situation. Yeah, be positive about it.
You make light of your own situations.
Exactly. So I think it's acceptable. I mean, I can speak on the same thing. So, but this is about you. So. More of the background without answering the question.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, so being so young and trying to like deal with that, you don't really understand it. So basically, my what was with me was that I kind of just assumed I was sad all the time, and I kind of just thought that was normal. I thought maybe that's just a thing about growing up is that you just like you just feel bad a lot more than you used to, right? So not until like later in school when we start talking about like the brain and kind of things like that, where you learn about like chemical imbalances and what these actual things are, did I realize what was wrong with me, right? And being uneducated, as like a lot of people are, I didn't think that there was actually anything I could do. I just thought that this is my life now. I'm just gonna be sad all the time now, and there's nothing I can do about it, and so I'm just gonna have to learn to live with it. And so that's really what I did was I just learned to live with it. I kept it very hidden. Um, as someone with depression, you learn like tricks. But I was gonna say so that like you play that you're happy and you put on that fake smile. It's like putting on a mask, right? You put on like this face so that everyone can see that you're fine and okay, you're happy. But then when you go home and you lock yourself in your room, the mask comes off and you just sit there in sadness. You feel alone all the time. Even when you're out with your friends, you feel like you're this little tiny speck. No one notices you, and you're alone even when you're surrounded by people that love you.
Yeah, and that is definitely true, and that works for both genders. And there's like I said in a depression video I made a couple weeks ago, depression can manifest in different ways. So it's not always the type that you think, because people typically think, oh, you can't get out of bed, you don't have the energy to eat, you don't have the energy to shower, to this, to that. And it's not always like that. There's also like the manic depressive as well. So that typically is a lot of anger, and they show it. Like, it's very noticeable. The person's very angry, very irritable. They act out quite a bit. So did you think you had a little bit of both, or was there one specific way that it was, or did it start out one way and end up the other way?
So uh, a lot of the time it was basically just me feeling alone and sad and just not really wanting to do anything. Like a lot of my interests just like went away. Like I loved going skateboarding and playing hockey, video games, and those things kind of just like fell apart. I stopped playing hockey, stopped skateboarding.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't couldn't in like hold my own interest playing video games anymore even. So it was a lot of just like sitting in my room watching TV that I wasn't really even paying attention to.
That makes sense, because some people, I know some people experience both, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're manic depressive, but you can still show signs of one and another one, but it's the one that you show the most signs of, like the most consistent one is like the one you'll get diagnosed with. And sometimes if you're manic depressive, like there is a chance you could have one of the bipolar disorders, the manic one. So it just depends. Doesn't mean you do have it, but that can show signs of that, because sometimes it just starts out with being depressed and then you could have had that and it'll manifest into that. Like, I would say for me it was a bit of both, definitely. Especially in the beginning, I was very manic, and then it kind of died down a little bit, and I stopped being so. How do you call it without being? I was a little out there.
Nuts.
Just thank you. To put it nicely, because he's not nice. It's a little out there, so that definitely went away though, and it just ended up being, the way he was for most of his. So that can happen. So I guess you already said when you realized you were depressed, like about like grade 9 sort of thing. And then what signs did you notice? And like how long until you realized that it was serious and you really needed to get help?
So, uh, signs. Oh
Like specific things that it doesn't have to be a lot of stuff, but just specific things or one specific thing that stood out to you that you were like, okay, this is an issue. Like I need to, get it
okay.
together.
So we're gonna we'll step back from that for a second, and
Okay.
we'll kind of work into the point of the understanding that it was severe. Um, so as a lot of people suffering from depression, a lot of people, I don't know why, I haven't really ever thought about it that much, but a lot of people get drawn towards the self harm, right? Um, and for it's no different for men, right? I did it. So along the lines of like self harm and stuff like that, it's no different between men and women. Both genders, they both do it. I did it. A thing that I think differs though is that it's the placement of where people choose to self harm. A lot of the time, you see girls they do it on their legs because they cover it up with pants, right? Um, I personally chose my side or my abdomen, chest area, because it was always covered by a shirt. So that's where I usually did that. Um, so that was probably one of like the darker times, I would say, where I was dealing with my depression. Unfortunately, not seeking any help, not thinking that I needed any help because I was a firm believer that I could deal with this by myself. Uh, what ended up happening is I moved out, and I was alone a lot of the time, and that's really when your thoughts start to build and attack you. So, thing that happened to me was that I had what you can call aggressive thoughts, where uh, something in your head is telling you that, oh, like you should do this, you should do that, and it kind of started boiling up to the point where I didn't really want to leave the apartment that I was living in because my brain was basically telling me that if I leave, bad things are going to happen. Um, and that pretty much drove me to the point where I couldn't function anymore. I didn't really want to live anymore at that point. And so one night I decided to go. I went for a walk and I walked over to a bridge that overlooked a main road. And what I was planning on doing is I was going to jump off the bridge and fall to the ground. And if the fall didn't kill me, what I was hoping is that I would jump at the right time where a car would hit me then. But obviously that didn't happen. I'm still here today. And what happened was extremely weird. My legs kind of just felt like they were sinking into cement. My legs felt really, really heavy, and I couldn't move. I was frozen, and I don't know whether that was a will to want to live or just fear of dying that caused that. But after that point, that was kind of when uh, I finally decided that it was time to reach out for some sort of help. Um, Thankfully, at the time, uh, the girl I was seeing helped me kind of deal with approaching my parents, um, to tell them like, hey, I'm depressed, and having to tell your parents that you're depressed and that you tried to kill yourself is something that's extremely hard. It's probably one of the hardest things that you're gonna have to deal with, is that situation, because what happens is that they immediately think that it's their fault. They think they've done something wrong because their child is unhappy, and because they don't really understand. At least our parents, they don't didn't understand what depression really was, because it really wasn't talked about at all for their age. So it was as new to them as it really was to us. And so it was a total learning experience for everyone, but a hard one at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And I think it brings a lot of like almost like hysteria in the parent too, because I know like personally like with mine, they were like almost like hyperventilating. They're like, "What do you need me to do? What do I do?" And like they were just like all over the place. So it just kind of, they went into like overdrive in a sense. Their adrenaline wasn't pumping. They're like, "Okay, what do we need to do?" And that was after I explained it, and or they went to other people and like understood it, because yeah, like he said, like my parents were like, what does that mean? Like you're sad? Like they didn't know. There wasn't a lot of talk about it. Now they know, but they had absolutely no clue. And I definitely agree with like telling your parents that. It's almost like you feel like you're gonna disappoint them too.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and because it's like you don't want to put your problems on your parents. You don't want them to think that they're the reasoning for this. So telling them is very, very difficult. And actually, a fact here is he actually encouraged me to tell my mom, and that's how I told her, was because he heavily encouraged me to do it. Yet at the time, you hadn't even spoken to your, because that's around the time we started figuring out you were, because it was in grade 9.
Yeah.
Grade 9, you started figuring it out, and yet at the same time, he was encouraging me to do it, which I think was great. But yeah, that's honestly one of the hardest things I've ever had to tell my parents. Ever. I mean, I couldn't even face my dad. I'm way closer with my mom, and telling her was really hard, and obviously she passed that on to my dad and told him, and then they both talked to me. But yeah, the hard thing to do. Eventually they help, but you know what, it's so good to tell them though. They're the most help out of anyone. I think, I don't know what your experience was like. Mine were very, very supportive and like would move the damn earth to like help me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yours did the same thing?
One thing I can definitely say though is that the first time you tell your parents, they might do what my parents did, and they kind of like shrugged it off, and they were like, "You're not depressed. You're just upset." And it's not because they don't believe you. It's because they don't want to believe that their child can be suffering like this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so even if they like you like bring it up and they kind of like brush it to the side, like they don't really want to accept it, don't take that as they don't believe you.
Yeah.
They're just not, they don't want to accept that because they'll think it's their fault. Mm-hmm. They really will. They'll think that they failed as a parent, and you need to let them know that it's not their fault, and it's a chemical imbalance is all it really is when it comes down to it. It's a chemical imbalance in the brain, and their parenting probably didn't do it.
Yeah, especially if there were like good parents, right? Like obviously like kids that go through a lot of like abuse and all that, like with the parents that they had, that's a different story. But when you don't have a history of that with your parents, it doesn't matter. They're still going to think it's their fault. They're still going to think they failed you, even though like they literally did nothing wrong and they were good parents. And yeah, that's just the way it is. And yeah, like you said, shrugging it off. Yeah, because it's almost like you're telling your parents that you're sick, right? Because it's a mental illness. You are sick. So it's just as if you were to have an illness that's not a mental illness, and you find this out, and then it's a shock to the parents, to your family, and they're like, okay, what do I do? And then later you go into overdrive. So yeah, you're basically telling your parents that you're sick, and they have trouble understanding it because you don't really see it physically.
No. It's
like in your head, and they can't guess what's in your head. They don't know what's going on. So I think it's actually even harder if you're coming to them and you're like, battling with my brain sort of thing, because then they can't really comprehend it. They can't make sense of it. And if you haven't gone through this yourself, you literally like, you don't understand it, and you don't know until you go through it. Like you literally don't. You can read all you want, you can do as much research, but unless you've been through it yourself, there is no way you can even like comprehend the situation. And I hope that a lot of you haven't had to go through this, but I know it's common and more common now. And if you have, then there's 2 people here that have gone through it, and I think we're doing okay. So
I'd
say.
Yeah.
Well, a lot better. So I think
Absolutely.
that's good. So how would you say you, I guess, coped with being depressed at a young age? Because me and you experienced this when we were quite young. So did you do that made you feel even slightly okay? Like, I know you didn't feel good, but just what kind of helped a little bit?
Helped. I would say being young. What helped when I was younger, at least, was that you had a lot of activities that you did. You went to school. You saw your friends all the time. So being in like middle school, being like 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, uh, that will really help. Yeah, that'll really help with that kind of problem. But as I got older, I found that there was less of that kind of help. And eventually I had to actually go seek out a professional, right? I had to go to a therapist. I had to have those sessions where you sit in the room and you just talk to someone for an hour, right? Uh, and it's not like the movies. You don't lay on the couch and
yeah, no, it's. I mean, some have couches.
yeah.
But,
I mean, I sat on a couch, but
you
wasn't,
don't just
wasn't
like
laying
have
there.
a snooze fest. They don't like hypnotize you.
Yeah,
like they do. Yeah, so I guess the activities you would say.
Yeah, I would definitely say as a kid at least being out and around a lot. But as I got older, it became
less
harder to be going out all the time, right? And so your coping mechanisms start to fall at the wayside, and you do really have to reach out and take a therapy session, and it's gonna be tough, right? Because you're talking to a total stranger. But the nice thing about talking to a total stranger is they have no bias. They don't know you, right? They don't judge you because they don't know anything about you. So they're really they're there to listen. And sometimes that's all it really takes is having someone to talk to, right? Now on the opposite spectrum of that, I had the therapy and I am also on antidepressants. And that was one thing that I never ever thought I was going to do. Even when I was in high school, I refused that thought that I would ever take medication to try and help me because I thought that my willpower essentially alone would help me through this, and that is so far from the truth. And I get it because a lot of people say like, oh, like you're a guy, you just gotta suck it up, right? There comes a point where you can't suck it up anymore. And I know that's kind of the stereotypical way that it's seen, but as a guy, like we can't do it alone.
Yeah, you don't have some special powers. Like we're all human. We're all human. We all have thoughts and emotions, and we all suffer at some point. So, yeah.
We're no different than a female that suffers from depression. Like we can't just suck it up and get over it.
Yeah, you can't just like, oh, it's cured.
Yeah, there's no shrugging off. And so, yeah, after a couple rounds of different medications, I found one that worked. And I would say I'm probably in the best place I've ever been in, right? And you gotta talk to your doctor about it. And don't just tell your doctor you need antidepressants and that's it. Because, like I said, I went through 3 different types before I found the one that actually worked. And you gotta let your doctor know. You can't just take the medication and not say anything about it, because if it's not helping or if it's making you feel off, then you talk to your doctor. They can look at that and go, well, maybe this one will help you. And just honestly, don't give up on it either. Just trust me. Keep going until you find something that works for you, because your life ends up being so much better than it was before.
Yeah, I do have something to add to that, though. We're not suggesting that you go out and seek pills. And as a student who did a psychology degree and who's going into counseling, like, I think it's really important that we don't make medicine is helpful, but let's not make it the first thing you do. I think medicine is good for a lot of people, for sure, but it should be the absolute last resort. Just because, you know, there are more side effects to it, and sometimes you might just need therapy. We don't really know what's going on yet. I think it's really important that you try and seek the therapy first, and then based off of that, you kind of they see, not you, because it's not up to you. They kind of see what route they need to go in, because I think that's nowadays doctors are so quick to be like, let's put you on this and you'll be better. It's like, but that doesn't teach you any valuable skills at all. If you're doing both, wonderful. I did both, and that was great. You did both. But if you're just relying on medication, or the first thing you want is meds, you're not learning any useful tools. Like, the reason that, you know, some of us can cope now and not being on medication, because I'm not on anything, and I haven't been for a while. The reason I can cope is because I learned all those valuable skills, all those tools, and through school I'm learning as well. So, you know, if you're going to get off the meds in order to just kind of survive and function well, without the meds, you need therapy. And even afterwards, I still do therapy. I'm not on medicine, and it's not necessarily about the depression. It's just because, like he said, it's nice to talk to someone that's biased about literally anything. Sometimes you need someone to talk to that is not going to judge you, because, you know, realistically, the people who know you kind of are judging you. Maybe not to your face, but, you know, they do have a lot of bias in that. So I think it's important to do that. So I wanted to add that.
They're not always going to be as honest as you want them to.
Yes, that too. They may have some bad things to say, and they don't want to say it because they don't want to offend you.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's very fair.
It's really nice of them to care about your feelings in that instance, but sometimes you need to hear the honest truth and not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm still taking my meds, and that's just the severity of my illness, is that I might have to be on my meds for the rest of my life. And that's not a weakness of mine, and I don't see it like that anymore. Before, I was very against it, and at this point now, I'm so glad that...
Yeah, you're thankful for it.
I'm so thankful for reaching out finally and actually taking those steps. Yeah, and they're not easy steps, but it's so cliche to say, but it gets better.
Yeah, I think we're a living proof to anyone that has known us for a long time. I mean, those of you who don't can hear this, obviously, but anybody who has known us for a really long time knows that, like, the way we're acting now, the way, just like even our facial expressions, completely different than what we used to be. We never really smiled, in a sense. I don't know, I think people saw you a different way, because you're always really goofy, but like with me, because I knew you on a different level, I saw the moods you were in. Yeah. So I could see the difference seeing you then, and I could tell that you were not doing well, versus now I don't see that. Just even by like your facial expressions, I can tell that it's a lot better. Yeah. Just like a lot happier. And I think, you know, the same was with me. I kind of had just like a stone cold face, and I wasn't very goofy. I think I'm more goofy now, not to the extent that he is. I'm more goofy now, but I was like stone cold face, and that has gone away clearly, and I make a lot of jokes now. So anyone that knows us knows this is a huge difference for the both of us.
I would say so.
And we both went through this at like the same time.
Yeah, without knowing it.
We didn't even like know. Yeah. You found out eventually, but you kind of kept it, and I was like, something's wrong, and you were like, no. Yeah, that's the other. You played it off all the time. I was like, you need to do something. Something's wrong. You were like, no, I'm good. Yeah. So like, no, you're not good. So that's what happens, and I guess men are a little more stubborn because they're afraid to talk about it too. Yeah, that's the thing.
It's that big stigma around it, is that men don't talk about their feelings, and that's such a lie. The amount of times where I have had like sit downs with friends or even my mom and just talked about things, you know.
And I think it's important, and you should. And I actually explained in my introduction that I made earlier that there is like a huge stigma with like men, and men are just like men are afraid to openly kind of talk about it. And I said that the fact that, I thought I would have a difficult time getting a guy on here because, usually there's girls that openly speak about mental illness. And I think it should go both ways because we're all human beings. We all experience that to the same kind of extent. It's the same for everybody. So that's why, like, it's good to have a guy on here who's willing to speak about it. And then maybe more guys will come forward and be like, hey, or maybe this will make you realize that something's going on and it's okay to do something about it and to get help and fix it. So I think that's important.
This is basically just for the guys at this point. This part's just really directed at the guys. There is a time to be like a grizzly bear, be that tough, like macho kind of guy. But there's also that time where you can just be a teddy bear, and it's okay to let people in, show your softer side. And it's good to embrace both those sides. You shouldn't be afraid of sharing feelings.
Yeah. And especially like guys think like when it comes to girls too, that they gotta like be super tough and super strong. And actually a good girl a girl who just like has an understanding of like human beings will actually appreciate a guy who's not afraid to speak of stuff, because you don't really want to talk to someone who shows no emotion, right? Because then it's like, what's wrong with you? You don't really get anywhere. And then it makes you feel like you have a lot of problems too. I've been through that, so I get I get it. That's why I'm saying it. But it's we are appreciative of the emotions, and that's where the communication thing with friendships, with relationships, is really key as well. Because you guys, communication is talking about things that bother you, things that make you happy, all of that. If you can't talk about things that bother you or your emotions or anything to the person you're dating or even your best friends or your family, then like what kind of relationship do you have with those people? Because you're just being like half of yourself and not your full self, and they're not getting that communication that they need and they deserve from you. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. I would say.
Well,
so don't be afraid.
I mean, it sounds so silly, but like sharing is caring.
Yes. That's very true.
Very simple.
Very true.
Sharing is caring. You hear people tell kids that all the time, but a lot of things that you were told as a kid work now still.
100%. So what made you want to openly speak about your history with depression?
Really just because I'm an open book. I don't really hide anything, right?
Yeah.
You can ask me any question and I give the answer to it, whether it's like an embarrassing answer or an honest answer. It doesn't really matter. Like I'm always willing to talk about a problem. So that's really it, is that I like to share my experiences with other people.
That's good. I think that's good. And I think by sharing it, it might actually help people or encourage people to get help too. So I think that's a benefit by listening to you and your story. So we kind of talked about this in bits and pieces. We can kind of briefly touch on it because it's kind of been here and there throughout the topic. So basically, I'm just saying, like, why do you think society is more accepting when women speak openly about depression versus men? Like, what do you think contributes to the gender differences?
So it's 100%. It goes so far back, like it basically goes back to all the way for our like grandparents, basically, where men are supposed to be tough and women are sensitive, and it's traveled down the pipeline of generations. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. Of generations where we're all taught that as a guy, you're not supposed to have feelings. You're supposed to be rough and tough and brooding, kind of like, nothing can hurt me. I'm such a big manly tough guy, and girls are allowed to be sensitive and have emotions where we're told that we're just supposed to be tough and suck it up.
That makes I would say the traditional views of society makes it that way where the woman's supposed to have more of the emotions and not really the men. So that's definitely where it comes from, and I guess what contributes to the gender differences.
I would 100% agree.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, I guess we kind of. I was gonna ask like, where are you now? How are you doing? You're definitely doing a lot better, and you're maintaining it by sticking to your meds. And what other things are you doing to kind of control it and maintain this?
Surrounding yourself with good people, good friends is a really, really big way to keep things under control. Talking to people, talking to your friends, talking to like your significant other is also extremely helpful. Letting people know what you're feeling, not being okay with sharing your emotions is probably one of the biggest things that helps keep things under control, right? Um, and family is really important. Because when I was going through it, my family really understood. Even my extended family understood. So, quick story. When it was my birthday, when I first kind of like explained this to my whole family, and it got out, they were nice enough to come see me in like sections. They didn't all come over at once and make it a big party. They each individually would come and see me, and kind of not overwhelm me, which was amazing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And the overwhelming thing I agree with. And once you tell people, they can be like, "Oh, what do you need me to do?" And everyone's kind of on you, and that actually creates a lot of panic because you're like, "I can't do this." It's definitely too much. You don't want to overload the brain. So yeah, I think that's really important, and it's actually really good that your family thought about doing that.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Mine's different because most of my family lives in a different country, so they didn't get to do that. But I'm sure mine wouldn't have thought about it just because they're crazy, loud, obnoxious Argentinians. So I'm sure they would have all been like, "Hey!"
Yeah.
And it would have been horrible. So it's a good thing your parents thought about that. So I don't know how they would. Actually, I don't even think I would have even thought of that if I was in their shoes. So that's crazy. I don't think I ever would have even thought about it. I know about it now, but I don't think I would have thought about it if I didn't know much about it like they did. So that's that's crazy. Good on them. Yeah, so do you have any advice to men who aren't so open about speaking on this topic that might possibly need help or might think that they do? I know there's like a lot of things you can say and a lot of cliches, but like, what do you think would be the most?
In all seriousness, if you're not 100% comfortable kind of like going out of your way to like let your loved ones know, maybe just start off with just going to see a therapist once a week, once every 2 weeks, but you don't have, I'm not saying you have to tell anybody, but going to that therapy, that'll help kind of loosen you up to be able to talk to everyone else about it. So if you're not ready to kind of discuss it with your family and friends, kind of secretly, I don't want to say secretly, but it really is secretly, go see a therapist. They'll help prepare you to make that jump basically to talking to your family, your spouse, whatever, about the problems you're having.
Yeah, whatever gets you there. Like, I mean, mine is not really specific to like men or women. Personally, like, I think it really helped having the people that I had that were very encouraging, and they were the people that found out first. So I think, yeah, you you were one of them. I think I had like 2 people that I was extremely close with, that I like had respect for, knew they respected me, they wanted the best for me, and I genuinely knew that. They didn't even have to tell me. And I think having those people, it was a little easier telling them. And I mean, I feel like they kind of knew in a sense anyway. But I think that really helped, and that's what ended up getting me to tell my family, and then that's how I got into therapy after that. So mine was a little bit of a different order than what you're saying, but there's no correct order. There's no order that works better than others. It's just whatever way works for you. Exactly. So it's not like a specific order that you have to follow. If you don't want to tell your friends, you don't have to tell your friends. Whatever you feel comfortable with. You do kind of have to go a little bit outside your comfort zone, because it's not an easy topic to have with anyone. So it is a little bit uncomfortable, but do it to the extent, that you're not super uncomfortable. A little bit of being uncomfortable is fine, but don't overload your brain to a point where you can't really function. You're like,
I mean, your first therapy session might be only 15 minutes of talking out of that entire hour.
And it's strange.
Yeah.
It is very strange.
Very strange.
Think about it this way. You're talking to a human being you have never seen before, you have never spoken to before, and you're telling them everything that is going on in your life. Right or wrong. Mainly wrong if you're seeing them. So you're just, it's not like you have that connection with them and you know them and you trust them. You don't really trust them at that point because you don't know them. Eventually it gets less weird, but the first session is weird, but don't let that scare you. Go back. I know a lot of people go once and they're like, it's not for me, because they felt uncomfortable, and it's like, you're supposed to feel uncomfortable. That is normal. Yeah. Stick it out. It gets better. You kind of create
a safe zone.
Yeah, it's a safe zone, and you can trust them, and they're not going to say anything. I mean, they have the whole confidentiality thing. They're not allowed to say anything. But yeah, you feel that at one point you get to know them and they can trust.
Unless you tell them you committed a crime.
Yes, if you are a harm to yourself or society, then they have every right to tell somebody. Yeah. If you're threatening to kill yourself, they have a right to tell somebody in your family. If you want to commit a crime, they can tell the police.
Yeah.
100%.
If you tell them you committed a crime, they can tell the police.
And they will. Not they can, they will. They're legally obligated to. So, but other than that, anything that you say,
they'll keep in confidentiality.
It's a secret. Nobody's going to know about it. And it's just the way it is, to try not to commit a crime.
You can tell them your deepest, darkest secret, and no one will ever hear about it. Like that time maybe you pooped your pants in 3rd grade.
That time that I was mad at my mom because she gave me a bowl cut by accident the day before picture day.
Yeah.
I was really angry. I don't hate my mom, but boy, at the time I was like, this woman, what did she do? Never touch my hair. Every time she holds a scissor now, I'm like, I'm gonna leave. Can't do that. Okay, so any last thoughts on, I guess, the whole thing overall, not just the depression thing? Do you have any final words of wisdom?
No, not really. I mean, no. You can always actually just talk with me if you have a question or you want to say something or ask me something. You can just message me on social media, Facebook or Instagram.
I can post your links if you want.
Yeah.
So people can message you, and same with me as well. I will always reply. I will not shut you out. So just any topic, and just like I mention in all my podcasts and the videos, if you do want to be a guest on here, I can have a guest here. It's a lot of fun, as we've literally been laughing for like 3 hours. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. You can talk about anything. He spoke about his experiences, and we kind of did it based off of that. You have the room to talk. Whatever you don't feel comfortable touching on, you don't have to say. Nobody's going to force you to say anything. So you can do that. If you just want a message and not be on here, that's fine. Also, we can just do the podcast and not the video if you really don't want to show your face in the video, and that's totally fine. Even if you don't want to share your name and you just like want to speak, you can do it like anonymous. Nobody will know who you are. So we can do that too. Yeah, and kind of a little closing statement here that looks really long. I didn't think it was this long. But as I mentioned before, like, it's really important that we cover these topics. And and mainly because men tend to not speak openly about these struggles. And by doing so, you're giving men like a voice, and maybe they would feel as though they can speak openly about it and perhaps get some help. It is a very brave and strong thing to do, to talk about your struggles, anyone, men and women. So keep that in mind. And also, this podcast was just like, I guess, extra special because we went through the same thing at the same time, and we've also known each other for so long. You know, we've experienced the bad, the good, the bullshit, kind of.
The awkward middle school years.
To now being adults, we've kind of like grown up together and went through this and kind of conquered this too. I'd conquered it at different times, but we were friends during kind of all of this, which I think was really important. So this one, this one's meaningful because we do know so much about each other, and there's that history, and you're really
getting the W,
winning the. So, anyway, thank you. This video is probably gonna be obnoxiously long.
It's fine.
You had a closing statement. I'm gonna let him have the last word. Okay, so I'm gonna let Carter have the last word since he had a closing statement for everyone.
So the podcast is edited, obviously. Kind of like, trimmed down into into manageable bits. But if you want a special little tidbit, watch the video. You get to see a little behind the scenes, little joking around, goofiness that is me and her. So
I think it's like mainly bloopers. Like
pretty much.
It's not even like an interview. It's just like bloopers. Like that should just be the title.
Yeah.
Because it's and normally people that know us don't see us getting along. So I think this would be fun to watch.
Yeah, watch the video.
Yeah, so watch the video. Don't just listen to the podcast, because there's extra things we didn't talk about in the podcast, which is us joking about. I have no idea what we even talked about.
Fucking
like the sky. I don't know.
Everything
Alcohol,
under the sun.
I don't know what we talked about. Yeah, so tune into the video. I will see you next time. Maybe he'll be back. Maybe he never wants to see my face again. That's fine.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you want me to come back.
Let us know if you should come back and what he should talk about. And if you do want to be a guest, let me know and we'll do that. And I'll put the links somewhere for our social medias. Okay, bye.
You bitch. Oh, God. Of course you did.
I didn't know that you were going to say that.
Fucking hell. Oh, can I swear on your show? Is that allowed?
Is that allowed?
I don't know how PG you're going to keep this shit. Achieve, kids. Do it. To your best of the abilities. It's not about the size, it's about how you use it.
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
That's a whole other topic. That is a mental illness in itself. Sorry if that offends anyone, but like it's
I don't have the I'm not sorry if I offend anybody. It's not my show. I don't care.
Carter takes years to apologize for things.
Absolutely.
As some people have learned me.
As I get older, as the platform grows in age, the amounts of shits I give about people's feelings go down. Someone will say something like, "You're a fucking idiot." They're like, "Oh, that's not very nice." And I'm like, "I don't really give a shit."
I can't disagree.
Tell people to go to hell a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Everyone else's feelings. I'm nice to the people I know, but if I don't know you, you can go to hell, and I don't care about your opinion or your feelings.
I mean, you're not nice to people you know either.
I do call people a lot of names, usually.
Yeah.
Not a bully, though. I'm not bullying them, because then we laugh about it after.
Yeah, he doesn't bully me. He
But
just makes fun of me.
It's basically the same.
Which is like kind of bullying, but we're friends, so like...
Yeah, is it really bullying?
If you're friends.
If you're friends, yeah. You in the comments below, you leave a comment. You tell.
And we
you
honestly
tell us.
cannot be as mean to each other as we used to be when we dated. So I think we're quite nice.
Be that mean still. Oh, I could do
And I'll fucking end your life.
Oh, I could still do it.
He's scared of me, so. Latina fire right here. It's a problem. Okay, we're getting off topic. It's a problem. It's a problem, but not a problem.
Whole other topic.
But that's a whole other topic. Latina's another mental illness.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed.
Look at me now, Dad.
Look at me.
Look at me now, Dad.
Doing a podcast with your ex-girlfriend.
Are you proud of me, Dad? Are you proud of me?
God, anyone that like went to school with us that like doesn't know where we are now because we don't talk to them are probably like, they're in the same room?
Oh my god.
They didn't kill each other?
They took the blue pill. It's a Matrix reference.
It's gonna be, if anyone from high school like watches this or listens to this, they're actually gonna be shook.
God, I hope no one from high school
I
listens
know,
to
me
this.
either, but like I'm saying, if they do, it's like, since when are they able to be in the same room?
Well, if anyone from high school listens to this, if I didn't talk to you,
Bye.
I probably hated you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't like a lot of you guys from Massey.
I don't like a single person, including him.
This all better be left in, or I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna listen to this one just so that I can hear this conversation happen. And if it's not in there, I'm gonna be
What the
pissed.
hell? You didn't like you in high school?
No, yeah,
I didn't.
all
We
of it.
weren't friends in high
Yeah,
school.
well, I want the people that, if they listen to this from high school, I want them to know that I probably didn't like them either.
Yeah.
So,
I fucking hated all of you.
I'm not gonna go that far, but
I did. They were not nice.
Alright, there's a large chunk of people I didn't like. This all better be left in.
99.9% I didn't like. But I think they already knew that.
I could name them too, actually, fuck.
The ones that didn't like you or didn't like me or both?
No, the ones I didn't like. That's a pretty large
I thought it was
list.
like the ones that didn't like me or didn't like you.
It's
That's a
probably
lot
the-
of people.
It's probably the same list.
Yeah. I would say it's the same
It's
fucking
probably
list.
a large list.
Well, we came from the same school, and on the very first day of high school, everybody knew who we were, so it was good. No. Labeled by being crazy. Mainly me.
It's not my fault. It's never the guy's fault. It's never our fault.
It's never the guy's
right,
fault.
guys? It's
you know,
never our fault.
I was just crazy,
Leave,
and he was a saint.
leave it in the comments.
He didn't do anything.
I want a smiley face for every guy that knows that it's not our fault.
Bet you one of those comments is going to be like
It's
another
our fault.
ex-boyfriend of mine or something.
It's usually our fault.
Usually, almost always. I mean, I went crazy because I had other shit going on. It wasn't just you. You were definitely a factor, but like, I'm not going to pin it all on you and be like, it's your fault. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far. I realized. At the time, I thought you're responsible for literally everything. But now I know now, and I've known for a couple of years that's not the case. You're just a factor in it, which I think is important to learn. Because I cannot blame one human being for everything wrong in your life. That's a tip.
You can
For
blame
everyone.
one person.
No, you shouldn't blame one human being.
You get to
for
blame one person.
one.
You get to blame pick one person, you get to blame them for all your problems. It's God. He's also not real.
Yeah, so therefore you can't do that.
Draw.
I'm not recording on here because I'm